Fikile Vilakazi back with us. You were expressing your shock at the behaviour of Mxolisi Kaunda, a mayor who could not attend a council meeting.
Yes, apologies to viewers at home and to you, Stephen. It was shocking. I mean, the mayor was just evasive. He did not answer a single question that was posed to him, about what was happening in the morning. And I think he was basically saying to the media and to South Africans, why don't you ask me about the bursaries that I'm giving to people and so on. And then that was problematic, because we wanted to get a sense of the instability that is glaringly happening and unfolding in front of our eyes and in front of our screens, Stephen. So that was totally disturbing and shocking.
Doesn't it point to the fact that there's clearly a problem behind the scenes with the politics? The ANC had not reached an agreement with someone on who it wants the deputy mayor to be. Next week, Kaunda himself could be out in a confidence motion there.
Yes, it could be. Look, I mean, we are going through a tough time as a nation, Stephen. We are actually at a place, I would argue, where India was around 1979. You would know that the first coalition government in India happened in 1979, and these issues already were demonstrating themselves. And that should tell you the level of maturity of our democracy. I think it happened again in India in 1989. Similar issues of power, disagreements within political parties, not wanting to share, differences of opinion and ideological frameworks, and compromising citizens. You only saw later on in the politics of India and the coalition framework about 3 successive governments that were able to have a coalition government by 13 political parties who were fundamentally different in terms of ideology, but were able to say at this point in time, we need to center the citizen in India. And I think that is a challenge that is facing us here. I mean, it's happening everywhere. KZN, Ekurhuleni, it's happening in Johannesburg. The mayor has just been ousted for the 3rd time, and everybody just wanting power for themselves, Stephen. At the center of all of this, there's very little that centers what happens to citizens. Citizens' sewage has not been collected. We are thirsty, Stephen. There's no water. We're running out of water in the country when we actually do have resources that can be used to salvage the situation. The question of energy, the question of light. So those are the things that are telling us that in the context of the maturity of our democracy, which is fairly young but is showing signs of maturing, we are probably, at that phase where we then need to say, South Africa, this is repeating itself. We've seen it in Nelson Mandela Bay. We're heading towards 2024. Are we going to follow the pattern that India experienced in 1979?
Can I ask?
And this is 2023.
Can I ask Dr. Vilakazi, sorry to interrupt you. I do want to ask, before we run out of time, in Joburg now, I think the real question is going to be, will the ANC put up a candidate? It has more seats than anyone in the city of Joburg. Or will they be a candidate from the minority parties, some of the smaller parties who work together, that is then supported by the ANC?
Strategic decision-making positions, which is why we've seen Ekurhuleni mayoral contestation collapsing in the face of the ANC recently. And I suspect that is what is happening now. We are likely to see a leadership that's emerging from the smaller parties, perhaps supported, of course, by what they call themselves the Super 7, which is the opposition against the DA. And I think this is the reason why they are supporting the ANC against the DA, right? And if that does not happen, we are likely to see another collapse of what we've seen just recently, just yesterday, a couple of days, a couple of months, what happened to Ekurhuleni. So it is a negotiation of position, it's a negotiation of power. Smaller parties are kingmakers, but at the same time, in the manner that they've been negotiating during these coalitions in the various metros, you can see that they're also saying, even if we do not have numbers, we also at least give us a strategic position where we can be able to exercise and be seen whether we can deliver to the voter. There are problems about that, Stephen, problems like you are saying that if you're a minority, then actually you do not have support on the ground. There's issues of who holds you down there, when it comes to issues of service delivery, because we know that service delivery does not depend on political parties. It actually depends very much on the coalitions and the partnerships and the alliances that you have with ordinary citizens on the ground, the ability to mobilize the voter that has voted for you. So if you have 1 seat or 2 seats, chances are that those who have got more seats, even if they put you in power, they are going to mobilize their ground forces to work against you so that you are seen to be failing. And that is going to then continuously subject coalition governments that are led by minorities into a state of political instability and these kinds of things, of motion of no confidences that we are going to see coming. But also it's dangerous for smaller parties to take that kind of positionality at this point. I think it's premature in a sense that if you are a smaller party, you want to be in a position where you're convincing a voter that we are able to deliver on things that the ANC has failed on things that some of the bigger opposition parties like the DA and the EFF have failed on. So if you then put yourself in a position of power and you have to give people water, and then you see the situation of Nelson Mandela Bay unfolding itself, you are setting yourself up for failure, strategically speaking.
Yeah.
You know, I think for smaller parties, that is the danger. And of course, there are kings and queen makers, Stephen. So that is my contestation.
Dr. Vilakazi, thank you as always. Really appreciate the time. Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, like all of us, battling load shedding today, trying to get as much light on an image as we can.